All right, I'm actually really, really pumped about this because what I'm about to show you has saved me personally hours of like trying to figure out what in the world is going on. So we're gonna look at the Flask shell, and you're gonna be like, Flask shell? What? We're gonna do an update, a create, an update, and a delete on a recipe. We're going to do this in the terminal. We're going to see this in TablePlus. So we're going to see that connection between code and database, right? And we're going to do this all in Flask shell. Now, I would live in Flask shell if I could. What is Flask shell? So it's just a terminal. So here's my terminal. And if you've been following along, you've seen me do this before. So I'm in my project and I can just do this, run.sh. And when I do that, I end up getting like, it looks a little bit crazy at first, right? Like all these tabs start opening up, VS Code opens up to the project, and my browser opens up with my hello world, right? And that's really handy tool for those of you who are on a Apple device, a Mac operating system that works. Now, if you are not, and then the reason I did that is because then in the second tab you have Flask shell has already been run for you, and you're in here, and so you're good to go. Now, if you are not, the traditional way of, if you're not on an Apple device or you don't want to run run.sh, then the traditional way of doing this would be first start your virtual environment. So be in your project source, then activate, and that's on a sets up. This is how it works on Mac OS, and then that instantiates your virtual environment. And you see it here. Now we're using venv. I have seen people use .venv, but Flask new creates a venv file, not a .venv file. So that's why we use venv. And you're like, okay, well then why am I doing this? Because now the reason you're doing this is now you can run Flask shell. And what's so great about Flask shell? It just looks like it's a place where I can. It's an interpreter that allows me to run Python code, and you're like, Drew, could have done this just simply typing in Python, Python maybe 3, and now I can write Python, right? Depends on how you have your machine set up, either Python or Python 3. The advantage here is that this knows about your app. It knows what app is. It actually even knows about your model. You can type in recipe and it knows about it. If you type in recipe here, it's going to be like, I have no idea what a recipe is. And that's a little bit of magic. And the way that works, I put down here. Because a priori, what you would have to do is you would have to do something like this: from app.models import recipe, and it's like I don't know even what that is doing because I may not even, I am in the right folder, but this isn't set up to handle that because it doesn't have .env, and I would have to I haven't set those up from it. It has a lot of things in your application that it doesn't have context to, basically. And this is a package that we are using somewhere in the structure that it needs to pull the recipe. And so here, we're lucky the way we set it up, because we would kind of traditionally need to write this line here. And here it has all the, it has everything from our virtual environment. So it knew what .env is, and I don't have that installed globally, so this didn't know what .env is. But why was I able to write recipe without having to do the import? And the reason that you're able to do that is a little bit of magic. It's the way SQLAlchemy has things set up, and then the way I created your app instance, your Flask app instance. So if you go into VS Code, which is here, and let's go into our apps under init and look at the create function right here, I import all the models. So by importing all the models here and then having this set to true, add models to shell in Flask SQLAlchemy, the documentation is here on it, its default is set to true. And so that allows you to have access to all your models in your Flask shell. So good to know, and that way you won't have to keep importing your models or try to bring your models over some other way, which is what I used to do. Now they just kind of, it comes for free. But let's actually create an instance of, so let's follow this. We'll create an instance of a recipe, and then we'll update it and delete it. We'll do all the things, the CRUD things here, and we'll see them in TablePlus. So right now in TablePlus, I have no recipes. Here's my terminal. We'll put this over here. So you can either use this one, or you can use the one that we started with here from run.sh. Either one is going to work for you. And let's create our first recipe, and then we'll see it in the database. So to create the recipe, we're going to say recipe equals, and then we'll call the class recipe.create, and then we need to hand it a dictionary where the keys are the column names. And right now we only have one column name, which we did in the prior video, of name. That's our column name. And I'm going to make a recipe on salad. All right. And this is going to do all the things and this is going to make everything all at once. So if I hit enter, then I actually have a recipe. And if I type in recipe, I'm going to see, there it is. And this, what's being printed here, is the, and you can use print if you want, instead of just typing it like that. What you're seeing here is from the rep magic function, which is, if we go to our recipe, it is down here. And we mentioned that when we went through demystifying this recipe.py file. That is what you're seeing. That's what's getting printed there. And so self.id is saying that the ID number is 1 in our case. And so we should automatically see that in the database. So if I come here and I refresh, sure enough, there it is. Now, this is, if you saw version 03 or you're used to doing this, you'll notice that this is a little bit helpful, because typically the way you would create a recipe, so let's say recipe 2 is going to be like this. You normally would create a recipe like this, and I'm gonna, or maybe you would, let's do it like this, name equals, and let's make pizza. Okay, so right now I have recipe 2, and if I do this, watch what happens. It says none. You're like, well, you got 1, this is recipe 2, it should just be 2, right? And if I come over here, I refresh, hey, there's no pizza. What's going on? Well, if you look at our code in VS Code, when we did that create, we did a whole bunch of checking up here to make sure that you didn't pass anything odd, but we did this, db.session.add, and we added that instance that we created, and we did db.session.commit. And we would have to do that in order for this to appear in TablePlus. So if I want this to appear, I would need to do db.session.add recipe 2 and db.session.commit. Okay, and now there's recipe 2, which is pizza. So I had this kind of wrapped in a function that you could use, but it just seemed, I kept wanting to create, update, and delete, and so that's what we did. I just decided that we're gonna have every model is gonna come shipped with a create, update, and delete, and so it does. Now if I look at recipe 2, then I see the ID number, right? So you can avoid all this just by writing it like this. So that's the advantage to this .create method, which is a class method, which is a little bit different than you're probably used to. Now, with a regular instance method. Now, we got some free stuff. Well, for one, notice I never said the ID is 1 or the ID is 2, and I never set created at and updated at. That all came because of the way the class was written. This is primary key, so it's just automatically incrementing. And then we set default values, and on updated at, we actually have an on update method, so that this should just change for us. Let's see that now. And we can also query the database and in code and see how many recipes we have. Because I've kind of gone a little bit off script, we're going to have a slightly different number than what's listed in the docs here. We have 2 recipes, right? So I can query the database. So here, I will bring this up just a little bit so you're not at the bottom of your screen, then we can scroll up and down. So recipe.query.count will count how many recipes are in the database, and at this moment there are 2. In this example, if you were just following along, you would see the 1. Now let's look at, so our recipe is the salad recipe. So if I want to see its name, I just put name. That's salad, right? Let's keep the original updated at to be recipe.updated at. I want to do this so I can show you that updated at gets changed when I change some column on the instance, right? So I want to change name, and you can do this in a couple ways. So the old school way of doing this would be to manually go in and say recipe.name is now equal to the new salad. Okay, and if you do that, then you're probably gonna think I'm pulling the wool over your eyes, because if I go back over to TablePlus, let's undo that, refresh, the refresh button's here, I still see salad. I don't see new salad. And let's come here. And so you can see my updated has this 913062, 913062. So it doesn't look like anything has changed, and it hasn't. But you're like, well, I just changed name to new salad. Why am I not seeing it? And that's because you would need to commit. So you can either do db.session.add and then add recipe, but I believe it's already in the session right now, so I think we can just do db.session.commit, and now come over here, and now it changed, right? New salad. And so it's fine to do this way. It's just I often personally forgot to do this and then wondered why things weren't getting updated. And hence the reason we have these two methods. So for me, I like doing it like this. I can do recipe.update, and then I'm going to send it a dictionary. And I just always remember on the create, I'm sending a dictionary. On the update, I'm sending a dictionary. I'm just always sending it a dictionary. And in the dictionary, I put the key as the column name that I want to change. So in this case, it's name, and I want to change it to fruit salad. And if you're a Wiggles fan, you're probably singing the song in your head. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's completely fine too. So now when I do this, now you can assign, this is going to return an instance, the same thing back. So if you want to do it like this, you can do that. I'm just going to update it. And it returned it, so it printed it out, and that's why we saw that printout statement. But if I refresh, fruit salad is there, and now this also, you can rewind a second, this should have also updated. Okay, so, and the updated kind of magically updates anytime you change this value in here. So if I change this and put 2 in here and hit return, then if I watch this ending in 886, refresh it, there you go. So now you're seeing that updated change. And so we saw it in the database, and we can see it in code because we now have recipe.updated and so here was the original updated and here's the new updated so you can just say the updated is now greater than the original updated and that's a true statement. All right, and then we already printed out the updated and we can print out the recipe.name, and we sure enough get the current new name, which is fruit salad 2. In the docs, I defined it as updated recipe, and then I went through this like, is updated recipe the same as recipe? And it sure is. And then what's the name of recipe? It's fruit salad, even though you're defining updated recipe to be the recipe.update with the name of fruit salad. So this updated at, it works on this variable and it returns that variable. So you can capture it if you want. If you don't want to capture it, you don't have to. This is really whatever works for your application. Now, it is nice to use these methods because for me, I am quite prone to, let's do a green salad. I'm quite prone to spelling mistakes. So in something like that, I'm going to get an error when I do this. And it's like, hey, recipe doesn't have an attribute in AEM. It has an attribute name, and it doesn't change anything. Like green salad is not going to be the name of recipe. Recipe name is still going to be fruit salad too. All right. And then the destructive one, which you cannot come back from, is the delete. Recipe.delete. And when I come over here, fruit salad should be gone. And sure enough, it is. And then if I count recipe.query.count, I should just get one recipe, which is recipe ID 2, which is pizza. And what did we call pizza? Recipe 2, maybe? Recipe 2, right there. So recipe2.name, or we could just type in recipe 2, and we see ID is 2, and we can do recipe2.delete. And now we have no recipes in my database. So if I count the number of recipes, I should be 0. Sure enough, I do. The little bit weird or odd behavior is that if you type in recipe, you're like, hey, I still have recipe. And I still have recipe 2. You still have a reference to recipe and recipe 2 in memory. You do not have this in the database. And as soon as you, in this terminal session, you're going to lose those values. They're not going to persist. And then another interesting thing to me, let's create a new recipe. Recipe 3. And let's do this. Let's say recipe 3 is recipe.create. And we're going to hand it a dictionary. And it's going to have a name of, it's a soup recipe. Okay. Now, when I refresh, notice it restarted the index, which is, I believe this is a little bit different than MySQL. MySQL, I believe, would have kept this at the next occurring one, which in our case would have been like 3 because we already had a 1 and a 2 and then we deleted. But SQLite kind of forgets and just starts over. So it's like, oh, you don't have anything in here. So we'll start it with ID 1, which I personally kind of like. You would think all the sequels are the same, but there's actually varying sequels. I deal a lot with SQL. MySQL, it's pretty much, it's free, and so it's easy to use. I actually have not dealt a lot with SQLite, but I am beginning to like it a lot because it's that one single file, and I'm not recommending this as far as any kind of production, but if you're teaching something and you need your students to be able to have setup database, you could commit that file, and then when they run their application, they already have your database templated out, stubbed out for them. So that's handy. I like SQLite for a lot of things. It seems to be very helpful. So let's see. Other than that, that really is the whole CRUD. We've gone through all the CRUD steps here. And I mean, the Flash shell is super cool, and as I said before, it saved me a ton of time because I can just kind of go in here and test things out, and then implement that in my controllers logic. Now, the world doesn't use applications that are Flash shells. They actually use live applications, right? So we need to somehow be able to use this in our web application instead of just seeing this blank hello world screen. And so we're going to do that through routes, controllers, templates, and that's going to bring back this, if you remember, this CRUD option that we did with make controller. We're going to bring that into our new world of make model. So we'll see you in the next video.